I came to my husband's grave and found fresh flowers, signed with my name. Hi everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. The house became different after David died. Not just quiet houses can be quiet and still feel alive. This one felt abandoned even with me in it. The walls seemed to pull away from each other. The furniture looked staged, like props in a show that had already closed. Every room smelled faintly of nothing, which is worse than you'd think. Nothing has a smell. It's the absence of coffee in the morning, of cologne on Sunday shirts, of sweat after a run. It's the smell of a life that stopped mid-sentence. I moved through the rooms like a ghost in my own home. Kitchen, living room, bedroom. The bathroom still had his toothbrush in the holder. I couldn't throw it away. I also couldn't look at it. So I just stopped using that bathroom. People came by in the first few weeks. Neighbors with casseroles. His colleagues from the consulting firm with their uncomfortable condolences. My sister flew in from Portland and stayed for 10 days, which was 9 days longer than either of us could handle. She meant well. They all meant well. But their eyes kept sliding away from mine, and their voices had that careful softness people use around broken things. The funeral was on a Thursday. I remember thinking how wrong that was. Thursdays are for grocery shopping and conference calls, not for burying your husband. There were more people there than I expected. David had always been private, keeping his circles small and separate. I recognized maybe half the faces. The other half stood in clusters near the back, whispering to each other, glancing at me with expressions I couldn't read. Pity, maybe, or something else. Detective Morrison came to the funeral. He didn't have to. The case was closed accidental death, they'd ruled. David had been found at the bottom of the ravine off Highway 7, his car wrapped around a tree. Single vehicle accident. No other cars involved. Rainy night, slick roads, a curve he'd driven 100 times. These things happen, Morrison had said. I'm very sorry for your loss. But Morrison's eyes at the funeral held something that didn't match his words. He stood apart from the crowd, watching. Not grieving, watching. When our eyes met across the cemetery, he gave me a small nod and left without speaking to me. The whispers started after that. I heard them in fragments, pieces of conversations that stopped when I walked into a room. At the grocery store, at the bank. Once, in the parking lot of the pharmacy, 2 women I vaguely knew saw me and immediately fell silent, their faces flushing with the guilt of the caught. Always wondered what he did on those trips. Heard he was seen at that hotel on Morrison Street, and not alone. Money doesn't just disappear like that. She must have known something. I didn't ask what they meant. I didn't want to know. David was gone. Whatever secrets he'd carried had died with him in that ravine, and I was content to let them stay buried. Our marriage hadn't been perfect. I knew that. The late-night phone calls he'd taken his car. The business trips that seemed to have no paperwork trail. The way he'd sometimes look at me across the dinner table with an expression I couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or fear, or resignation. But he'd also been the man who brought me coffee in bed on Saturday mornings, who remembered my mother's birthday when I forgot, who held my hand during the miscarriage and cried with me. People are complicated. Marriages are complicated. Death doesn't simplify them. It just ends them. I decided I didn't need to know everything. I decided the past could stay in the past. That decision lasted exactly 11 months and 23 days. I hadn't been back to the cemetery since the funeral. I told myself it was because I didn't need a grave to remember David, that he was everywhere in the house anyway, haunting the spaces between furniture and the silence after dark. But the truth was simpler and more cowardly. I was afraid. Afraid of what? I couldn't say. Afraid of feeling nothing. Afraid of feeling too much. Afraid of standing at his grave and realizing I didn't know the man I'd buried. But the anniversary came, and with it came a pull I couldn't ignore. 1 year, 365 days since the accident, since the phone call from the police, since my life divided into before and after. I went alone. I didn't tell anyone I was going, not my sister, not my few remaining friends, not even Mrs. Patterson next door, who'd taken to checking on me with the persistence of a worried mother. It was early morning, barely past dawn, the October air sharp and clean. The cemetery was empty, except for a maintenance worker in the distance, too far away to see clearly. David's grave was in the newer section, near a stand of oak trees that were just beginning to turn. The headstone was simple gray granite with his name, his dates, and the inscription I'd chosen, "Beloved Husband." The words felt hollow now, or maybe I did. I approached slowly, my shoes crunching on the gravel path. That's when I saw them. Fresh flowers, a bouquet of white lilies and deep red roses, professionally arranged, the kind you get from an expensive florist. They sat in a vase directly in front of the headstone, the petals still perfect, drops of dew catching the early morning light. My first thought was confusion. My second was a strange, irrational gratitude. Someone else remembered him. Someone else cared. My third thought, the one that made my hands go cold, came when I saw the card. It was tucked among the flowers, a small white envelope on a plastic holder. The kind that comes with funeral arrangements. I bent down and pulled it free with shaking fingers. The envelope wasn't sealed. Inside was a card, plain white, with a message written in neat feminine handwriting. "With love and remembrance, always yours, Sarah." Sarah. That was my name. I stared at the card for a long moment, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. I read it again, and again. "With love and remembrance, always yours, Sarah." But I hadn't bought these flowers. I hadn't been here. I hadn't written this card. Someone else had. Someone who knew my name. Someone who'd signed it as me. I looked around the cemetery. Empty. Silent. Just the wind in the oak trees and the distant sound of traffic from the highway. My heart hammered against my ribs. I picked up the vase and examined it. No markings, no florist label. I checked the flowers themselves. Fresh. Very fresh. These had been placed here recently. This morning, maybe. Within the hour. Someone had been here. Someone who knew I would come today, to this grave, on this anniversary. Someone who wanted me to find these flowers and this card with my name signed in someone else's handwriting. I stood there with the card in my hand, and for the first time since David died, I felt something sharper than grief. I felt afraid. I took the card with me. I know I shouldn't have. It was evidence, maybe, of something, though I couldn't have said what. But I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket, left the flowers where they were, and walked back to my car on legs that didn't quite feel steady. The drive home was automatic. I don't remember making the turns or stopping at lights. My mind was spinning through possibilities, each one less rational than the last. A mistake. Wrong grave. Someone else named Sarah. But no, David's name was right there on the headstone. No mistake. A cruel prank. Teenagers with too much time and too little empathy. But how would they know my name? How would they know today was the anniversary? Someone who knew us. Someone from David's life, playing some sick game. That felt closer to true, but it didn't answer why. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table with the card in front of me and tried to think logically. I made a list in my head of people who might have done this. David's colleagues from work, but most of them barely knew me. We'd gone to a few company events, but David had always kept his work life separate. He said it was boring, that I'd hate the shop talk and politics. I'd believed him, his friends, but David didn't have many close friends. There was Marcus, his college roommate, who lived in Boston and hadn't even made it to the funeral. There was Tom from the gym, who I'd met maybe twice. Actually, I was having trouble thinking of others. For someone who'd lived in this town for 8 years, David had remarkably few local connections. Family David's parents were both dead. He had a brother, James, who I'd met exactly once, at our wedding. They weren't close. James lived somewhere in Nevada and worked in casino security. He'd sent a sympathy card after the funeral, but hadn't called or visited. That left people I didn't know about. And given what I'd heard in those whispered conversations, there were apparently quite a few of those. I pulled out my phone and stared at it. I could call the police. Report. What? That someone left flowers at my husband's grave? That someone signed my name to a card? It felt absurd, even thinking about it. Morrison would listen politely and tell me there was nothing he could do. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't illegal. It was just strange. Instead, I did something I'd been avoiding for nearly a year. I went to David's office. We'd had separate workspaces, his upstairs in the converted third bedroom, mine downstairs in a corner of the dining room where I did my freelance graphic design work. After he died, I'd closed the door to his office and hadn't opened it since. His lawyer had asked if there were any files he needed for the estate settlement. I told him to take whatever he needed. He'd spent an afternoon up there and left with 2 boxes. I hadn't asked what was in them. Now, I stood outside that closed door with my hand on the knob, my heart beating too fast. It was just a room, just David's things, nothing to be afraid of. I opened the door. The office looked exactly as he'd left it. Desk with his computer monitor dark and dusty. Filing cabinets. Bookshelves with technical manuals and thriller novels. A photo of us from our wedding. My face bright with hope I barely recognized now. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust that made the morning light look hazy. I sat down at his desk and turned on the computer. It asked for a password. I tried his birthday, our anniversary, my name, all wrong. I tried the password to our joint banking account, wrong. After the 5th attempt, the system locked me out. Fine. I'd search the old-fashioned way. I started with the filing cabinet, tax returns, insurance policies, warranty information for appliances I didn't recognize, medical records, bills, all paid, everything organized and ordinary. The desk drawers were similar, office supplies, old notebooks, receipts for parking and coffee. His passport, which showed he hadn't traveled anywhere in the past 2 years despite those business trips. I sat back, frustrated. What was I even looking for? Evidence of an affair? A secret enemy? A reason someone would sign my name to flowers at his grave? Then I noticed the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet didn't quite line up with the others. I pulled it all the way out, and something rattled in the back. I reached my hand into the empty space behind where the drawer had been and felt paper. I pulled out a manila envelope, unsealed, with nothing written on the outside. Inside were photographs. The first was of David with a woman I didn't recognize. They were sitting at an outdoor cafe, coffee cups in front of them, talking. The woman was blonde, pretty, somewhere in her 30s. She was leaning forward, her expression intense. David was leaning back, his face guarded. The second photo was of the same woman, this time alone, getting into a silver sedan. The license plate was visible. The third photo was of David again, this time with a man I also didn't recognize. They were standing in what looked like a parking garage. The man was heavy-set, wearing an expensive suit. He was handing David something, an envelope, maybe, or a package. Both of them looked tense. There were 6 more photos. Different people, different locations, but all featuring David in conversations or meetings that looked secretive, hurried, wrong. The last item in the envelope was a business card. Heavy stock, expensive. It read, Richard Castellano, private investigator, with a phone number and an address downtown. My hands were shaking. These were surveillance photos. Someone had been following David, documenting his meetings, building a case of, what? And David had kept them, which meant he knew he was being watched. He'd kept these photos like insurance, or evidence, or maybe just proof that whatever he'd been involved in was real. I picked up the business card and stared at it for a long time. Then I made the call. Richard Castellano's office was in a building downtown that had seen better decades. The elevator creaked ominously, and the hallway on the 4th floor smelled like old carpet and other people's cigarettes. His door was unmarked, except for a number 418, which somehow made it feel more private and more illicit. I knocked. A voice told me to come in. The man behind the desk was in his 50s, gray-haired, with tired eyes that had seen too much and believed too little. He looked me over once, quickly, then gestured to the chair across from him. "Sarah Mitchell," he said, not a question. "How did you—" "You called 3 hours ago and said you wanted to talk about your late husband. I looked you up. Sit down." I sat. The chair was more comfortable than it looked. "I found your card," I said, "in David's office, with photographs." Castellano nodded slowly. "He hired me about 18 months ago. Wanted to know if someone was following him. Turned out someone was. Several someones, actually." "Who?" "That's where it gets complicated." He opened a drawer and pulled out a file folder. It was thick, stuffed with papers and more photos. "Your husband was involved in something he never fully explained to me. He paid in cash, always met me in different locations, never wanted me to call his cell phone. He was scared, Mrs. Mitchell. Really scared." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Scared of what? He said he'd witnessed something. A crime, maybe, or something close to it. He didn't give me details, but he said people were watching him because of what he knew. He wanted me to document who they were, track their movements, figure out if they were dangerous. And were they? Castellano's expression darkened. "I don't know. Before I could finish the investigation, your husband died. After the accident, I closed the file. No client, no case." "What if it wasn't an accident?" The words came out before I could stop them. Castellano didn't look surprised. "The police ruled it accidental. Single vehicle collision, bad weather, no evidence of foul play." "But you don't believe that?" He was quiet for a moment. I believe your husband was being followed by people who had a reason to want him quiet. I believe he died very conveniently right around the time I was getting close to identifying some of those people. Do I have proof it was murder? No. Do I think it's worth looking at more closely? Yes. I pulled the card from my pocket and set it on his desk. This morning was the 1-year anniversary of his death. I went to his grave for the first time since the funeral. Someone had already been there. They left flowers with this card, signed with my name, but I didn't write it. Castellano picked up the card and examined it. His jaw tightened. "Someone's sending you a message." "What kind of message?" "Could be a lot of things. Could be someone trying to scare you. Could be someone who thinks you know something your husband told you. Could be someone warning you to stay away from the truth." He looked up at me. "Or it could be someone who's playing a much more complicated game." "I don't know anything," I said. "David never told me what he was involved in. I didn't even know he'd hired you." "Maybe they don't believe that. Or maybe they think you'll start looking now, and they want to stop you before you start." "Why not just leave me alone? I wasn't looking. I was trying to move on." Castellano leaned back in his chair. "Because you went to the grave today. Because it's the anniversary. Because maybe they've been waiting to see what you'd do, and now they know you're curious." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Someone's watching me." "I don't know, but I'd be careful if I were you." He tapped the card. "Mind if I keep this? I want to have the handwriting analyzed." "What will that tell you?" "Maybe nothing. Maybe something. If we're lucky, it'll match someone in your husband's circle. Someone we can identify and question." I nodded. "What do I owe you?" "Nothing yet. Consider this a consultation. If you want me to reopen the investigation, we can talk about fees." He stood up, signaling the meeting was over. "But Mrs. Mitchell, if someone is watching you, they'll know you came here today. They'll know you're asking questions. That might make you a target. You need to decide if you really want to know the truth, because the truth might be dangerous." I stood too. "Someone signed my name. Someone is using me. I'm already involved whether I want to be or not." Castellano almost smiled. "Then I guess we're reopening the case." I started paying attention. To the cars that passed my house too many times. To the man at the coffee shop who always seemed to be leaving right when I arrived. to the feeling of being watched that prickled the back of my neck when I walked to my car. I couldn't tell if it was real or paranoia. Maybe there was no difference anymore. Castellano called me 2 days after our meeting. The handwriting analysis had come back inconclusive. Whoever wrote the card had used generic block letters, deliberately disguising their natural hand. But he had other information. "I pulled the files from my original investigation," he said. "I want you to look at some of the people your husband was connected to. See if you recognize anyone." We met at a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place that served breakfast all day and minded its own business. Castellano spread photos across the table. "This woman," he said, pointing to the blonde from the cafe photo. "Her name is Jennifer Marks. She worked for the same consulting firm as your husband, different department. They met regularly for about 3 months before his death." "An affair?" The word tasted bitter. "Maybe, or maybe professional. The meetings were always public cafes, restaurants, once in a park. If it was an affair, they were being pretty careful about it." "What does she say?" "I haven't contacted her yet. Wanted to check with you first. But I did some background research. She left the consulting firm 2 months after your husband died. Moved to Seattle. Started working for a tech company doing basically the same thing she did here. Normal career move, on the surface. But she left in a hurry, gave 2 weeks' notice and was gone. Didn't attend your husband's funeral despite working with him for years. That's cold, or it's scared." He pointed to another photo. "This man, Marcus Brennan, financial analyst. He and your husband had lunch together at least 6 times that I documented. Always the same restaurant and Italian place downtown called Rossetti's." I frowned. David hated Italian food. He was lactose intolerant. Castellano raised an eyebrow. "Then they weren't meeting for the food. Rossetti's is cash only, no cameras, tables spaced far apart. Good place for private conversations." He showed me 3 more photos. More men I didn't recognize, more secret meetings, more pieces of a life David had kept completely hidden from me. "What were they doing?" I asked. "What was he involved in?" That's what we need to find out. But based on the pattern regular meetings, multiple people, high security awareness, I'd say your husband was either gathering information or distributing it. Either he was building a case against someone, or he was part of something that required extreme discretion. Like what? A crime syndicate? It sounded absurd saying it out loud. Maybe. Or corporate espionage, or witness to fraud, or blackmail. Lots of possibilities, all of them bad. Castellano pulled out 1 more photo. This one was different grainier, taken from a distance with a zoom lens. It showed David standing outside an office building I didn't recognize, talking to a man whose face was turned away from the camera. This was taken 3 weeks before he died. I never identified the man he's meeting with. But see that building? I looked closer. What about it? It's owned by a shell corporation that traces back to several others. Took me weeks to untangle, and I still couldn't find the actual owner. But the building itself is interesting. It's mostly empty. A few offices on the lower floors, but the upper floors are vacant. No business signs, no listing with commercial real estate companies, just sitting there. What's it used for? That's the question. I drove by it a few times during my original investigation. There's always the same car in the parking lot, a black Mercedes. Expensive, with tinted windows, security cameras everywhere. Someone's using that building for something they want kept private. I stared at the photo. David looked tense in it, his shoulders hunched, his hands shoved in his pockets. The body language of someone who didn't want to be there. "I want to talk to Jennifer Marks," I said. Castellano nodded. "I thought you might. I already tracked down her number in Seattle. But Mrs. Mitchell, Sarah, you need to be prepared for what you might learn. Your husband was lying to you for at least 18 months, probably longer. The truth might be something you wish you didn't know. Someone is signing my name. Someone thinks I'm part of this, whatever this is. I need to know why." "Okay." He slid a piece of paper across the table. "That's her number. Call from a payphone if you can, or a burner cell. Don't use your regular phone. Why? Because if someone's watching you, they might be listening too. I bought a prepaid cell phone from a convenience store and called Jennifer Marks from my car, parked in the lot of a library across town. She answered on the fourth ring. Hello? Jennifer Marks? My name is Sarah Mitchell. I was married to David Mitchell. I need to talk to you about him. There was a long silence. Then, how did you get this number? A private investigator. Please. I just want to understand what my husband was involved in before he died. I can't talk about this. Someone left flowers at his grave signed with my name. Someone's watching me. Please. I don't know what's happening, and I'm scared. Another silence. I could hear her breathing, could almost feel her weighing risks on the other end of the line. Not on the phone, she said finally. And not in Seattle. There's a rest stop off I-5, about halfway between us. Mackenzie Pass Rest Area. Can you be there tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Yes. Come alone. If you bring anyone at all, I'm gone. Understand? I understand. She hung up. The drive took 4 hours. The rest area was nearly empty when I arrived, just a few truckers catching sleep in the parking lot, and a family with young kids stretching their legs. I parked near the picnic area and waited. At exactly 2 p.m., a silver Honda pulled in. Jennifer Marks got out. She looked older than in the photos, worn down, like someone who hadn't slept well in a long time. She walked to my car and got in the passenger seat without preamble. You look like your pictures, she said. David showed me photos once. He told you about me? He felt guilty about lying to you. For what that's worth. She stared straight ahead through the windshield. I worked with your husband for 4 years. He was good at his job, too good. He saw things other people missed, patterns in data, discrepancies in reports, money moving in ways that didn't make sense. What kind of money? Company money, client money, lots of it. About 2 years ago, David noticed something wrong in one of our biggest client accounts. Numbers that didn't add up. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Classic embezzlement scheme, but sophisticated. He brought it to me because I worked in compliance. He thought we'd report it together, clean it up internally. But you didn't. We tried. We went to our supervisor, then to his supervisor. And that's when we realized the problem went higher than we thought. People we reported to were part of it. Maybe people above them too. We were told to drop it, to forget what we'd seen. We were told it could be dangerous for our careers if we kept pushing. But David didn't stop. No, he couldn't. He said if this much money was being stolen, people were being hurt. Retirement funds, pension accounts, real people losing real money. So he started documenting everything, making copies of files, tracking transactions, building a case. He was going to take it to the FBI. My heart was pounding. What happened? He got scared. People started following him. His car was broken into, nothing stolen, but it had been searched. Someone left a note on his windshield warning him to stop. He realized he was in over his head. He came to me and asked what he should do. I told him to give the evidence to the feds and walk away. Let them handle it. Did he? I don't know. 3 weeks later, he was dead. I went to his funeral and saw some of the same people there, people from the company, people who we'd suspected. They were watching you, watching me, making sure we all stayed quiet. I quit the next month and moved. I've been looking over my shoulder ever since. Who are these people? Give me names. Jennifer finally looked at me. Her eyes were haunted. Marcus Brennan was your husband's main contact inside the scheme. He's the one who orchestrated most of it. But he's mid-level. The real power is someone higher up, someone David never identified. Someone with enough reach to cover up murders and make them look like accidents. You think David was murdered. I know he was. And I think you're in danger too. If they think he told you anything, if they think you have his evidence, they'll come for you next. That's why I left. That's why I won't go on record. I want to live, Sarah. I don't have any evidence. I don't know anything. I was trying to move on with my life. Then why are you asking questions now? Because someone won't let me forget. Someone is playing games, using my name, making me part of this. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the card from the grave. Jennifer's face went pale. Oh God, they're marking you. They want you to know they're watching. They want you scared enough to either run or make a mistake. What kind of mistake? Looking for the evidence. David told me he had insurance files hidden somewhere safe. If they think you're going to find those files and use them, they'll have to act. They'll have to either retrieve them or eliminate you before you can turn them over to authorities. I don't know where any files are. Then you need to figure it out before they decide you're a threat, or you need to run. Tonight. New city, new name, new life. It's the only way to be safe. I thought about my empty house, my quiet life, the year I'd spent trying to grieve and heal. All of it built on lies. All of it an illusion. I can't run, I said. This is my home, my life. Then you need to find those files and use them. Go to the FBI, the media, whoever will listen. Burn it all down before they burn you. It's the only other option. She opened the car door. I shouldn't have come. If they find out I talked to you. Thank you, I said. I know you're scared. I am too. Then be smart. Trust no one. And whatever you do, don't go to the police. Morrison, the detective who worked your husband's case, he's one of them. He's being paid to keep things quiet. She got out and walked back to her car without looking back. I sat there for a long time after she left, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing. David had evidence. Evidence he'd hidden. Evidence people would kill for. And somehow, I had to find it before they found me. The flowers appeared again the following Tuesday. I'd gone back to the cemetery early, before dawn, thinking maybe I'd catch whoever was leaving them. I'd parked a block away and walked in, keeping to the shadows between the maintenance buildings. David's grave was empty when I arrived. I waited, hidden behind a large oak tree, as the sun came up and the cemetery slowly filled with morning light. At 7:15 a.m., a black Mercedes pulled into the cemetery. Expensive, tinted windows. The same car Castellano had described at the mysterious office building. My breath caught. I pressed myself against the tree, watching. The driver didn't get out. The car sat there for 5 minutes, engine running. Then it drove slowly through the cemetery. Not to David's grave, but past it, in a wide loop that covered most of the grounds. Whoever was inside was looking for something. Or someone, looking for me. The Mercedes left. I stayed hidden for another 20 minutes, making sure it wasn't coming back. When I finally walked to David's grave, there were no flowers, no card, nothing. They'd known I'd come. They'd been waiting for me. And when I didn't show myself, they left. I pulled out the burner phone and called Castellano. They were here, I said. The black Mercedes. They were looking for me. Get out of there, now! Don't go home! Meet me at... He gave me an address on the other side of town. 20 minutes. I ran to my car and drove with my eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. No one followed. At least, not that I could see. Castellano was waiting in the parking lot of an abandoned shopping center. His face was grim. They're escalating, he said. That's not good. It means they're getting impatient or nervous. Jennifer Marks told me David had evidence hidden somewhere. Insurance files. We need to find them. I know. I've been thinking about that. Your husband was careful, paranoid even. He wouldn't have kept anything at home or at work. Too easy to find. He would have used a safety deposit box, or a storage unit, or... He paused. Did he have any property? Any place outside your home? I shook my head. No, we rented. We didn't own anything except the house, and I've been through every inch of it. What about family property? Parents' house? Childhood home? His parents are dead. The house was sold years ago. Siblings? A brother in Nevada, James. But they weren't close. Castellano's eyes sharpened. Not close doesn't mean David didn't trust him with something important. Family's family, especially when you're scared and running out of options. You have a way to contact James? I have an old phone number. I don't know if it still works. Try it. I used the burner phone. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. You've reached James Mitchell. Leave a message. James, this is Sarah, David's wife. I need to talk to you urgently about your brother. Please call me back. I left the burner phone number and hung up. Now what? I asked. Now we assume they're watching your house. We need to find you a safe place to stay while we work this out. I can stay with my sister. No, they'll look there. Anyone obvious is out. Hotel, motel, anywhere you've been before. We need something off the grid. He thought for a moment. I have a cabin about an hour north. It's remote. No neighbors, not in my name. You can stay there while I keep digging. I'm not hiding. I'm not running. You're being smart. There's a difference. Let me do the legwork while you stay safe. If James calls back, we'll have a lead. If I can track down those files, we'll have leverage. But none of that matters if you're dead. He was right. I hated it. But he was right. Okay, I said. The cabin. He handed me a key and a hand-drawn map. No GPS. Follow the directions exactly. There's no cell service, but there's a landline. The number's on the map. Call me when you get there. I took the key. Castellano, why are you helping me? David's dead. The case is cold. You don't owe me anything. He looked at me for a long moment. Your husband came to me because he thought someone was going to kill him. I took his money and told him I'd protect him. 3 weeks later, he was dead. Maybe I could have stopped it. Maybe I should have pushed harder, worked faster. I don't know. But I'm not letting them take you too. Consider it professional pride. I almost smiled. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything. I drove north. The cabin was exactly where the map said it would be, at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by pine trees, no other houses visible in any direction. It was small and weathered, but clean inside. One room with a bed, a table, a kitchenette. A wood stove for heat. A bathroom with a shower that probably ran cold. I called Castellano from the landline to let him know I'd arrived safely. Then I sat on the bed and waited. James called back at 3 a.m. The phone's shrill ring jolted me from a restless half-sleep. I stumbled to it in the dark. Sarah? His voice was rough, cautious. Got your message. What's this about? David was murdered. Someone's after me. I need to know if he sent you anything, told you anything, left anything with you. Silence on the line. Then, you should have left this alone. I didn't have a choice. They came to his grave. They're watching me. They know I'm looking. Then stop looking, walk away, change your name, disappear. That's what I did. My heart skipped. What do you mean? David called me 2 weeks before he died. Said he was in trouble. Said he'd witnessed something at work. Some kind of fraud scheme, and the people involved were dangerous. He asked if he could send me something for safekeeping. Insurance, he called it. Did he send it? Yeah. A package arrived the day after he died. I almost threw it away. Thought it was too dangerous to keep. But it was from my brother, you know? Last thing he ever sent me. So I kept it. What's in it? I don't know. I never opened it. It's a sealed envelope, thick. Feels like papers, or maybe a flash drive. David's instructions were clear. If anything happened to him, I was supposed to send it to the FBI, but only if I was sure he was murdered. If it really was an accident, I was supposed to destroy it. It wasn't an accident. Jennifer Marks confirmed it. He was killed because of what he knew. James was quiet for a long time. Then I guess it's time to send the package. No. Don't send it to the FBI. Not yet. Why not? Because the detective on David's case is dirty. He's working for them. If you send it through official channels, it'll disappear. We need to be smarter than that. We. There's no we, Sarah. I'm sorry about David. I'm sorry you're in danger. But I've got my own life, my own problems. I'll mail you the package, and then I'm done. You do what you want with it. James, please. I'll overnight it to you. What's the address? I gave him the address of a post office box I'd opened years ago for my design business. I hadn't used it in months, but it was still active. "It'll be there tomorrow afternoon," James said. "After that, I'm changing my number. Don't contact me again. I mean it. Good luck, Sarah." He hung up. I stood there in the dark cabin, the phone humming in my hand. David's evidence. The proof of everything. It would be in my hands in less than 24 hours. And then what? I called Castellano at dawn and told him about James. "That's good," he said. "That's really good. Once we have the evidence, we can what? Give it to the FBI and hope it reaches someone honest? Go to the media and hope they publish it before someone kills us? What's the actual plan here?" "The plan is to use it as leverage. We approach Marcus Brennan directly. Tell him we have the evidence, and we'll go public unless he gives us names. The people above him, the ones pulling the strings. We trade up the chain until we get to whoever ordered your husband killed." "That's insane. Why would he cooperate?" "Because we'll offer him immunity in exchange for testimony. Let him flip on his bosses to save himself. It's how these things work." "And if he just decides to kill us instead?" "That's why we do it smart. Public place, multiple copies of the evidence in secure locations, dead man's switch arrangements. We make it so that killing us accomplishes nothing. The evidence goes public anyway." It sounded good in theory. In practice, I didn't believe it would work. These people had killed David and made it look like an accident. They had resources, connections, reach. What did I have? A private investigator and a package I hadn't even seen yet. "I'll pick up the package this afternoon," I said. "Then we'll figure out next steps." "No, you stay at the cabin. I'll pick up the package. You're too exposed." "It's my name on the P.O. box. They won't give it to you." "Then give me written authorization. I'll bring ID, paperwork, whatever they need." Castellano. "Sarah, listen to me. If they're watching that post office, if they know the package is coming, they'll be waiting for you. Let me take the risk. That's what you're paying me for." He was right again. I hated it again. "Okay, but call me the second you have it." "I will. Sit tight. Stay safe. This'll be over soon." He hung up. I spent the day pacing the small cabin, watching the trees outside for any sign of movement, jumping at every sound. Hours crawled by. 3 p.m. came and went. 4, 5. At 6, the phone rang. "Castellano?" "No." The voice was male, smooth, unfamiliar. "Mrs. Mitchell, we need to talk." My blood went cold. "Who is this?" "Someone who can help you, or hurt you. Your choice. Your private investigator friend picked up a package this afternoon. We'd like it back." "I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't insult my intelligence. You've been asking questions, making calls, poking into things that don't concern you. We've been patient. We've tried to warn you. But now you have something that belongs to us, and we want it returned. Where's Castellano?" "He's fine, for now. He's sitting in his car about 2 miles from where you are right now. He hasn't opened the package yet. That's smart of him. If you cooperate, he stays fine. If you don't," the voice trailed off meaningfully, "what do you want? Bring us the evidence, all of it, everything your husband collected, everything he gave to his brother, everything the investigator picked up today. You deliver it to us, we verify it's complete, and then this all goes away. You go back to your life. No one gets hurt. You'll kill me anyway, just like you killed David. Your husband made bad choices. He could have walked away. He could have kept his mouth shut. Instead, he tried to play hero. Don't make the same mistake." "How do I know you won't kill Castellano even if I cooperate?" "You don't. But I promise you this. If you don't cooperate, he dies tonight. Slowly. And then we come for you. We know where you are, Sarah. We've known the whole time. The cabin was never safe. It was just bait." The line went dead. I stood frozen, my mind racing. They had Castellano. They knew where I was. The cabin was surrounded, probably. I was trapped. The evidence was my only leverage. As long as I had it, or they thought I had value. The moment they confirmed it was in their hands, I was dead. I had to assume Castellano had the package in his car. I had to assume he was still alive. And I had to figure out how to save both of us without giving up the only thing keeping us breathing. I looked around the cabin. No weapons, no back exit. One door, windows on 3 sides. If they wanted to come in, they could. But they hadn't. Which meant they wanted me to come out. To lead them to Castellano's car, to the evidence, to everything. I turned off all the lights in the cabin and moved to the window. The sun was setting, long shadows stretching through the trees. I watched for movement, for the glint of metal, for anything. There. A figure behind a tree about 50 yards away. Another one to the left, near the tree line. At least 2 of them. Probably more. I went to the phone and dialed the number Castellano had given me for emergencies. It rang once. Then a voice I didn't recognize answered. "Mrs. Mitchell, calling for help? There's no one coming. Your investigator friend can't answer his phone right now. You're alone." "I want to make a deal," I said. "Face to face, just you and me." Why would I agree to that? Because I know where David hid additional copies of the evidence. Not just what James sent. Other copies, other locations, safe deposit boxes, cloud storage, people he trusted. If you kill me, you'll never find all of it. But if you let me and Castellano go, I'll tell you everything. Every location, every person. You can clean it all up. No loose ends. Silence. I could almost hear him thinking, calculating. "You're lying." Maybe. Or maybe David was smarter than you thought. Maybe he set up insurance you never knew about. Are you willing to bet your boss's freedom on that? Because if even one copy surfaces, if even one file gets to the right person, this whole thing unravels. And whoever's at the top goes to prison. Do you really want to take that chance? More silence. "I'll meet you, but not at the cabin. Drive to the main road. Turn left. 2 miles down, there's an old gas station, closed down. Be there in 30 minutes. Come alone. If I see the investigator or anyone else, you both die." "How do I know you'll let us go?" "You don't. 30 minutes, Mrs. Mitchell. Don't be late." The line went dead again. I had no additional copies, no secret locations, no insurance. I'd lied completely, but I'd bought time, and time was all I had. I grabbed the keys to my car and opened the cabin door. The figures in the trees moved toward me. I ran. I drove fast, my headlights cutting through the gathering dark. Behind me, headlights appeared, 2 vehicles, closing fast. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. The pretense was over. The old gas station appeared on my left, exactly where the voice had said. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, pumps long since removed. A single light pole still working, casting a sickly yellow glow over the cracked pavement. 2 cars were already there. The black Mercedes, and Castellano's sedan. Driver's door open, interior light on. I pulled in and parked. The cars that had been following me pulled in behind, blocking my exit. 4 men got out. Large, professional, the kind of people who hurt others for a living. One of them opened the back door of the Mercedes, and another man stepped out. He was in his 50s, expensive suit, silver hair. He looked like a banker or a lawyer, someone you'd trust with your money or your secrets. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said pleasantly. "Thank you for coming. I'm sorry we had to meet under these circumstances." "Where's Castellano?" He gestured to the sedan. I looked inside and saw Castellano slumped in the passenger seat, his face bruised, his hands zip-tied behind his back. But he was breathing. "He's alive, for now. Let's keep it that way." The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You said you have information about additional copies of your husband's evidence. I'm listening." "First, you let him go. Then I'll talk." "I don't think you're in a position to negotiate." "I think I am. Because if I don't tell you what you need to know, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if there's a file out there with your name on it. Wondering if tomorrow's the day the FBI comes knocking. That's no way to live." The man studied me for a moment, then nodded to one of his associates. They pulled Castellano out of the car and cut his zip ties. He stumbled, caught himself, looked at me with desperate eyes. "Go," I told him. "Get out of here." "Sarah!" "Go." He hesitated, then ran to his car. Started the engine. The men didn't stop him. He drove away, taillights disappearing down the dark road. The man turned back to me. "Now." "The locations." I lied. "There are no other copies. I just wanted to make sure he got away." The smile vanished. "That was very foolish." "Maybe, but I'm not the one who's going to prison. You are, because the evidence James sent, Castellano opened it an hour ago. He photographed every page, and he sent those photos to 3 different lawyers with instructions to go public if anything happens to either of us. So congratulations, killing me won't help you at all." It was another lie, but it was the best lie I had. The man's face darkened. He pulled out a phone, made a call, spoke quietly, listened. His expression changed, surprise, then anger. "She's telling the truth," he said to his associates. "The investigator made copies. They're already distributed." One of the associates spoke up. "We can still contain it, if we move fast." "No?" The man looked at me with something like respect. "Your husband taught you well, or you're smarter than you look. Either way, you've won this round." "I want names," I said. "Everyone involved, everyone who knew, everyone who's dirty. You give me that, and maybe those lawyers don't go public. Maybe this stays quiet. And if I refuse? Then your boss goes to prison, and you go with him." The man was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, sharp and bitter. "You still don't understand. There is no boss. There's no conspiracy. There's no grand scheme." "What are you talking about? Your husband wasn't killed for witnessing a crime. He was killed because he was the crime. He wasn't collecting evidence against embezzlers. He was the embezzler. He was stealing millions from client accounts and hiding it in offshore structures. The people he was meeting with, they were his partners. And when he decided he wanted out, when he threatened to confess and take everyone down with him, they decided he was a liability." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You're lying." "Am I? Check the evidence James sent you. Really look at it. The account numbers, the transaction records. Your husband's signature is on everything. He was the architect of the whole operation, and when his conscience finally caught up with him, his partners made sure he couldn't talk." "Then why come after me? Why the flowers, the threats?" "Because your husband told his partners he'd hidden evidence against them, insurance to keep himself alive. After he died, they panicked. They thought he'd given it to you. They've been searching for it ever since. The flowers at the grave? That was them trying to spook you into making a move, leading them to the evidence." "But I didn't have anything." "Exactly. And now that we've confirmed that, now that we know the only evidence is in the hands of lawyers who've been told it implicates embezzlers, but not which embezzlers." He smiled again. "Well, that evidence doesn't mean much without context, does it? Without your husband alive to testify about who was involved and how the scheme worked, those documents are just numbers and names that could mean anything. I'll figure it out. I'll trace every transaction, identify every person. You're welcome to try. It'll take years, cost a fortune. And by the time you're done, most of the money will be moved, most of the people will be gone, and you'll be broke and alone with nothing to show for it." He stepped closer. "Or you can walk away. Take the life insurance money your husband left you. That's real, by the way. That's clean. And start over somewhere new. Forget all of this. Let the dead stay buried." "You killed him." "No, Mrs. Mitchell. His partners killed him. I'm just the lawyer they hired to clean up the mess. And right now, I'm offering you a way out. Take it." He walked back to the Mercedes. His associates followed. The cars drove away, leaving me alone under that single yellow light. I stood there for a long time, shaking, my mind trying to process what I'd just learned. David, my husband, not a hero, not a witness, a thief. Everything I'd believed for the past year was a lie. I drove back toward town in a daze, Called Castellano from the burner phone. Sarah, thank God. Are you okay? What happened? Meet me at the post office. The package James sent. We need to open it. Now? It's almost 10 p.m. Now. We met in the parking lot. My hand shook as I used my key to open the P.O. box. Inside was a thick manila envelope. Overnight Express. James's handwriting on the label. I tore it open. Inside was a USB drive and a letter in David's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm dead. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to become the person I became. It started small. Just a little accounting trick to cover a mistake I'd made. Then a little more to cover that. Then more. And suddenly, I was in too deep to climb out. The people I was working with, they weren't colleagues. They were criminals. Real ones. And I'd become one too. I tried to get out. I tried to confess. I went to Marcus and told him I was done, that I wanted to turn myself in. He laughed. He said if I talked, they'd kill me and make it look like an accident. He said they'd kill you too, to make sure there were no loose ends. So I started documenting everything. Every transaction, every person involved, every crime we committed. I figured if I had enough evidence, I could trade it for protection. Witness protection for both of us. A new life, away from this. But they found out. They knew I was collecting evidence. And now they're going to kill me. I know it. I can feel it. The USB drive has everything: bank records, emails, recorded conversations. Enough to put away 24 people, including some very powerful ones. If you're reading this, give it to the FBI, give it to the media, give it to anyone who will use it to bring these people down. And Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I put you in danger. I'm sorry I wasn't the man you thought I was. I love you. I always did. Even when I was at my worst, that was always true. David. I read the letter twice, tears streaming down my face. Castellano stood beside me silently. He was the thief, I said finally. He wasn't investigating a crime. He was committing it. And then he tried to make it right. He tried to stop. And they killed him for it. Yes. I looked at the USB drive in my hand. What do we do with this? Exactly what he said. We give it to the FBI, the real FBI, not Morrison. Federal agents who have no connection to this case. We hand over everything and let them handle it. And the lawyers who have the copies? The ones I lied about? We make them real. We actually send copies to lawyers, journalists, watchdog groups. We make sure that if anything happens to us, this still comes out. Real insurance this time. I nodded slowly. It was the right thing to do. David had died trying to do the right thing, even after doing so many wrong things. I owed it to him to finish what he started. Okay, I said. Let's do it. The trials are still ongoing. 23 people indicted so far. Marcus Brennan took a plea deal and is serving 15 years. The lawyer who threatened me, his name was Richard Holbrook, is awaiting trial on charges of obstruction and accessory to murder. Detective Morrison lost his badge and is facing corruption charges. The consulting firm collapsed. Clients lost millions. Some of that money has been recovered. Most hasn't. I testified at the grand jury hearing and will testify at the trials. I tell them what I know, which isn't much. I tell them David tried to make it right at the end. I tell them he was scared and guilty and desperate. I don't tell them I forgive him. I'm not sure I do. The life insurance money, the clean money Holbrook mentioned, turned out to be real. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I sold the house. Too many ghosts there. Too many memories that turned out to be lies. I moved to a small town in Colorado. Mountains, clean air, people who don't know my story. I started over. New job, new friends, new life. Therapy twice a week. Some days are better than others. Castellano calls every few weeks to update me on the case. He retired from private investigation after this. Said he was too old for this kind of excitement. Last I heard, he bought a boat and spends his days fishing. Jennifer Marks sent me a letter last month. Just a note saying she was glad the truth came out, that she was sorry about David, that she hoped I was healing. I wrote back, "We might become friends. Grief connects people in strange ways." I went back to the cemetery once, about 6 months ago. David's grave looked the same. No flowers except the ones I brought. No cards signed with my name. I stood there for a long time, trying to find the right words, trying to reconcile the man I married with the man he became, with the man he tried to be at the end. "You were a coward," I told him finally. "You were a thief and a liar and a coward. But you tried to be brave when it mattered. You tried to save me. You tried to do the right thing, even though it was too late. I don't know if that redeems you. I don't know if anything does. But I want you to know I understand. I understand being scared. I understand making mistakes. I understand wanting to fix things even when you don't know how." The wind moved through the oak trees. Somewhere a bird sang. "I loved you," I said. "The you I thought you were. And maybe that person was real too, somewhere under all the lies. I hope so. I hope you weren't just pretending the whole time." I left the flowers and walked away. I haven't been back since. I don't think I will. That chapter is closed. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about those flowers at his grave, the ones signed with my name. And I wonder if whoever left them knew the truth about David all along, if they were mocking him, or warning me, or sending some message I never quite decoded. I'll never know for sure. And I've made peace with that. Some mysteries don't get solved. Some questions don't get answered. Some stories don't have clean endings. This is mine. I came to my husband's grave and found fresh flowers signed with my name. And in trying to understand why, I discovered everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. I discovered my husband was a criminal who died trying to become something better. I discovered I was stronger than I thought, and more alone than I'd feared. I discovered the truth. And the truth, as it turns out, is complicated, messy, painful. Not quite what I wanted, but more honest than the fiction I'd been living. I'm still figuring out how to live with it. How to be Sarah Mitchell, widow of a thief, survivor of a conspiracy, witness to crimes I never knew were being committed. Some days I feel like I'm healing. Some days I feel like I'll never be whole again. But I wake up every morning. I go to work. I talk to my therapist. I make new memories that aren't tainted by lies. And that, I've decided, is enough. It has to be.